I'm 2 months late, but I finally watched Nosferatu. Hello everyone, and welcome on That Horror Chick, my YouTube channel where I ramble about all things horror. My name is Angie, and I am a huge horror fan. From books to movies, I like it all. In the beginning of this year, Nosferatu finally released. I had been looking forward to this one for quite a while, but thanks to the holiday rush, I didn't get around to watching it. It is now March and I finally saw it. I have quite a few things to say about this movie, so I thought, why not just make a whole review video of it? So without further ado, let's jump in. This is what I thought of Nosferatu. To prepare for this movie, I first watched the version out of 1922. Now, I do have a squirrel brain and my attention span is quite short. So the silent video version of this one was not the easiest to watch for me. I had to split it into 3 parts, but I did finish it. There also is a Nosferatu out of the 70s. I didn't see this one yet, but it definitely is on my list. Originally, I wanted to see the Nosferatu 2024 version in theaters, but as I said, with a holiday rush, I didn't manage to go and watch. The story of Nosferatu is as followed. It follows the obsession between a haunted young woman and a vampire. This vampire is completely obsessed with her, which causes untold horrors to unfold. We start with a young Ellen who prays to any spirit that wants to listen for companionship. But her plea is answered by a terrifying beast. Years later, in 1833, Anna lives together with her husband Thomas, who is an estate agent. However, she continues to be plagued by bouts of melancholy. Like in the original plot, Thomas is very eager to seal the deal to sell a crumbling castle to Count Orlok. Thus he travels to the Count's castle. Of course, this goes horribly wrong and Count Orlok goes after Ellen. Okay, let me tell you what I thought of this movie. I really liked that they kept the plot quite simple. It was very close to the original storyline. The cast of characters was also kept quite small, which made it much more interesting to watch. The emotional connection that you got with the characters was much easier to establish thanks to the small cast. Of course, this new remake of Nosferatu has a few changes from the original plot. In the original, Orlok sees a picture of Ellen, and this causes him to become obsessed with her. But in this version, she prays to an unknown entity and they answer. So there is already a history between Count Orlok and Ellen. Ellen is plagued by weird dreams for her whole life. And as the movie progresses, we learn more and more about the history between Ellen and Orlok. I really like this little change in the story because it just makes for a somewhat different movie to watch, especially since there are already 2 other movies about this story. I think it was a really good call to put in these little changes. What I was especially in love with were the looks of this movie. The color palette of this remake is so pretty. I just loved it so much. It had a lot of cold colors, which causes it to look black and white at times. I think this was such a smart decision, because it definitely did well for the overall atmosphere. Honestly, that is really smart usage of color and shadow. You also really notice that every shot in the movie is well thought out. I do think there is not a single shot in the movie that isn't put there on purpose. And then we're going to a personal favorite of mine, and that is the costumes. I just love clothing. And this also goes for costumes in movies. I am not a big history fanatic, so I cannot be sure if these costumes are accurate. But to me, each and every outfit really felt like they belonged in the 1800s. Let's talk about the characters, shall we? I just said that I was really happy to see that they kept the cast of characters relatively small. This is because I was kind of afraid that they would put too many characters in the movie. Personally, I like smaller casts better than the bigger ones, because it's much easier to establish an emotional connection. So when I saw the runtime of 2 hours for Nosferatu, I was very scared that the cast of characters would be much too large. But to my surprise and relief, I saw that this was not the case. They kept the group of characters small, and that made me very happy. The three main characters that we focus on are Count Orlok, Alan and Thomas. When I saw the casting for Alan, I was not sure what to think about it. Honestly, I had not seen Lily Rose Depp in much movies before, but I have to admit, Lily Rose did such a great job portraying Alan. I heard that she worked together with a movement coach, and this is definitely noticeable in several scenes. Like the one that she arches off the bed and the one in which her face goes all possession weird. Her eyes roll to the back of her head and her mouth is wide gaping open. It really gives a possession look and I absolutely loved it. To know that this is done without CGI, I was very impressed. These two scenes definitely live rent-free in my head. But if I have to choose one that I like more, then I have to choose the possession face. Just the combination of the eyes rolled to the back of her head, the wide open mouth and the drool dribbling over her chin was such a powerful image. I just know that I'm going to butcher this name because I've never been able to pronounce it correctly. But Count Orlok is played by Bill Skarsgård. I know this actor mainly from his role as Pennywise. But honestly, I did not really recognize him as Count Orlok. I knew that he played this role, but my brain somehow didn't make the connection. He just looked so incredibly different. But if I'm going to look at other movies that Bill has been in, this is actually a red thread for his roles. He just manages to look so different in so many movies. Now I have to be honest that I'm still a little bit on the fence about the looks of Count Orlok. This might be a little bit spoilery. So if you want to stay completely in the dark, please skip to the time on the screen right now. Okay, let's talk the looks of Count Orlok. As I said, I was not entirely sure about it. He didn't really look as the Count Orlok that I'm used to. The original Count Orlok reminded me of a rat with his pointy front teeth. But the 2024 version looks much more like the rotting corpse of a normal man. I am not saying that I disliked it, but just that it was different than I expected. I can definitely imagine people not liking this drastic change in the looks of Count Orlok. But for now I am going to say that I'm quite neutral on the looks of Count Orlok. Now we are getting to the third main character, Thomas. But honestly, he didn't really feel like a main character to me. He was just very forgettable. Sorry, not sorry, but most of the time I just forgot that he existed. Even though that I regularly forgot that his character was in the movie, Nicholas Hoult was a very good cast for him. He did have the correct looks. And he absolutely did a very good job acting. But the character itself was just forgettable to me. It didn't really give me the connection that I wanted to. But did I expect this character to stand out? Well, actually not. In the original 1922 version, Thomas didn't really stand out to me either. In that one, he also felt very forgettable to me. Now, I haven't seen the 70s one, so I cannot say if that's the case with that one as well. But one thing is for sure, Nicholas Hoult did look very hot as Thomas. I just love his looks. He is very hot. But the very simple conclusion to his character is that it's just very forgettable. Which is quite a shame, because I think that they could have done quite a lot with Thomas. Just add a little to it. Give it a little bit more spice. Of course, besides the three main characters, there were a couple of other characters as well. For example, the Hardings. This is a family that I actually got quite an emotional connection to, and I was quite shocked about everything that happens around them. The Hardings family consists out of Alan's best friend, her husband and her two daughters. Especially Emma Corrin as Alan's best friend, Anna, did such a good job. I just love the way that she portrayed this character. There are a couple of other secondary characters as well. We also have her Nak. I am totally butchering that word, even though Dutch is very close to German. And we also have Dr. Wilhelm Sievers. I found these secondary characters more memorable than Thomas, which is quite a shame because he's more like a main character. But if I think about this might be because they had a little bit more screen time than him. I especially like the character of Anna. She just has my heart. She was so cute. Of course, no scary movie is complete without some horror. And with Nosferatu, they very much lean on the suspense. There was very little shock factor and the jump scares were very minimum. I think the biggest jump scare was actually in the beginning. So if you are looking for a very scary movie that makes you jump out of your seat, Nosferatu might not be the right movie for you. I think that a little shock factor that this movie had actually came off the reveal of Count Orlok's looks. I think they did really well by keeping him in the shadows and thus prolonging the reveal. Luckily, I didn't expect a lot of shock factor and jump scares from a gothic horror. It is a slow burn at its finest, building up the suspense until its climax, which it has done really well. It reminded me a bit of this other gothic horror that I've seen recently, The Lodgers. I think that I have talked quite enough, so let's go to my final thoughts. Even though I am a big fan of body horror, I quite enjoyed this gothic little tale. Nosferatu definitely is a movie that you have to go into with zero expectations for jump scares. The original didn't have them either, and this one has very little of them as well. Which is okay for this kind of movie, because Nosferatu definitely depends on its suspense building. It is a very slow-paced movie, and I can imagine that this is not everyone's cup of tea. Often I have the attention span of a potato and I need something that is a little bit more fast-paced. If you're in the mood for something fast, then I do not recommend this movie. But if you can appreciate beautiful scenery, pretty costumes, and a more character-driven storyline, then I would say put this movie on your to-watch list. In the end, I ended up giving this movie 4.5 stars out of 5. Would I have rated it so high if I was expecting a more scare-filled movie? Absolutely not. But because I knew that it was a gothic tale and I am very much aware of the vibe that such movies have, I rated it a little bit higher. I knew what I was in for, and this definitely paid off in my enjoyment of the movie. I hope you guys enjoyed my little review of Nosferatu. I have rambled for quite a while now, but I have to say I really enjoyed info dumping about it. I was very excited for this movie when it was first announced, and I have to say, for me personally, it didn't disappoint. I have seen very mixed reviews though, and I think this is mainly because it is such a slow-paced movie. Nowadays we are very used to a more fast-paced storyline. A lot of kills, a lot of jump scares, a lot of blood, all that kind of thing. Nosferatu is very different in that regard, with very little jump scares and very little shock factor. But it was still a movie I very much enjoyed. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope that you liked it. If you want to stay up to date with all the movies that I watched, you can follow me on Letterboxd. I also have an Instagram where I post about the movies that I watch now and again. I am very curious what you guys thought of Nosferatu. Please leave your opinions in the comments down below. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope that you guys liked it. Please leave a thumbs up, a comment down below, and subscribe on my channel if you haven't done that yet. I will see you in the next video. Bye bye!